各位观众朋友，大家午安，欢迎收看疫后市场学线上研讨会，我是外贸协会陈玉如。我们今天研讨会的主题是疫情激励商机，欧洲电动自行车再现风潮。在活动开始之前，欢迎大家帮我们按赞、分享、订阅贸协 YouTube 频道，并且开启小铃铛。9月份每周四下午3点还会有一系列的疫后市场学线上研讨会，大家千万不要错过咯。2020年下半年，各国陆续解封，欧洲电动自行车市场却是出现了前所未有的荣景。我们今天非常荣幸邀请到2位重量级的讲师，分别是德国电动自行车大使 Miss Susanne Bruesch 以及英国 Cycling Industry News 创办人 Mr. Mark Sutton， 来为各位分享德国以及英国电动自行车市场的现况以及未来商机。大家如果有任何问题的话，欢迎在留言区留言，我们会后将有讲师为各位进行分享。首先，第一位讲师 Miss Susanne Bruesch 为德国 Pedelec Adventures 公司 CEO， 同时也是德国电动自行车大使，今日将分享当地的市场最新消息。Welcome Miss Susanne Bruesch。
大家你好，我非常高兴今天在这里跟你们分享今年德国的 e-bike boom and show you the opportunities that this electric bike boom in Germany provides for Taiwanese suppliers. Thank you, Taitra, for giving me the chance to address the audience today. My name is Susanne Bruesch, and I've been in the electric bike field for 22 years in different functions. And what they all have in common is that I communicated electric mobility in a worldwide network as a journalist, as the inventor of the word Pedelec and an ambassador for Pedelecs, as the founder and head of Pedelec Adventures, which I founded in 2011, and as a content creator, product tester, and as a speaker as well. With Pedelec Adventures, I've done electric bike trips to different continents, different parts of the world to show what's actually possible on electric bikes. Here, I give you a little impression of the 4 biggest trips I did. On the lower right, you see a picture from Morocco, where we traveled with solar trailers to recharge the batteries of our bikes through the sun. And we did the same thing in Mongolia, where we were really dependent on our own energy source. In Iceland in 2013, we tested bikes of the eFlow brand before they were introduced to the European market. And in 2016, I crossed the western part of the United States to learn about the market over there that was just evolving and inspire people about how much fun electric bikes can be. Today, Pedelec Adventures is a hub that connects all the different areas of the industry that are active in this field: the media, the industry itself, dealers, event organizers, consumers, and tour operators. It is a network of content creators and people who provide their know-how. My presentation today consists of 3 parts. In the first section, I would like to give you an overview of what's happening in the European and especially in the German bicycle and e-bike market right now. Now, the second part is an outlook to what of the things that are happening right now due to Corona will remain and will change with respect to cycling. And in the third part, I would like to give you some ideas how the Taiwanese industry can participate from this boom and benefit from it. Now let's start with the first section. And I would like to give you an idea of what the market was before Corona came. Like in Europe in in 2019, 3.6 million electric bikes were sold. And over a third of this amount was sold in Germany, which now is the biggest market in Europe. In Germany, last year, 1,360,000 electric bikes were sold. And even before Corona, Germany was a cycling nation. Maybe not as much as the Netherlands, where even more people cycle, but still 77% of 83 million German people use the bicycle every day for leisure and travel or for sports. Most of them use them in urban areas for everyday commuting. Over half of them use them for leisure, and almost every third uses bicycles to do sports. Now in February, when Corona hit Europe, and it was early March until it hit Germany, something very important happened. Corona turned out to be the big booster for bicycles in general and for e-bikes in particular. And the University of Dresden found out that almost 50% of people cycled longer and more often since the coronavirus has been around. Now, what happened? People got scared of mass transport and they wanted to keep social distance, and cycling really helped them to do so. Now, many people lost their jobs due to lockdowns or were afraid of losing their businesses and still are. So they are looking for ways to save money and move in a more economical way, and the bicycle helps them to do so. Everybody stayed at home. Home office, homeschooling, universities went digital, so the roads were empty. And in the capitals of Europe or in bigger cities, we had a lot of pop-up cycle lanes that appeared and that were there for people to use. And many people who did not cycle before got inspired and chose the bicycle as their way to move around during Corona times, and we call them pop-up cyclists. Now, flights were canceled, borders were closed, and people could not go on international travel or on vacation anymore. So what happened? Tourism started to focus on local recreation areas. And planning ahead became more and more difficult. So what we started doing is planning from day to day. And because everybody was at home anyway, fitness centers were closed, swimming pools were closed, but people still wanted to exercise and move their bodies. So they started doing cycle trips from home. Doing cycle trips was popular before as well, but it was even more popular through Corona. Now, what does that mean to the industry? All of a sudden, there was an exploding demand in bicycles and e-bikes, and manufacturers are sold out for the whole of next year. And it is only August. This never happened in the bicycle industry before that. Before Eurobike show, the next year is already sold out. But because all the trade events are canceled, and most of them, at least the big ones, dealers order their bicycles online. And they are making the business of their lifetime right now. Most dealers are sold out, and the products they may have had in stock are also sold out. They sold everything without even giving discounts. And if you want to go and buy a bicycle today, you have to make an appointment. If you have a flat tire and you want to have it fixed, you have to make an appointment because bicycle dealers are so busy, and you gotta wait for 2 months. And what else happens? I hear a story. stories that people come to the bike shop and they want to buy an e-bike, 2 e-bikes, both of them, 3,000 euros each. And then the dealer says, sorry, I don't have this category anymore. I only have e-bikes that cost double the price. So the couple looks at each other and says, okay, we buy those then. And here's the thing, because people can't go on vacation right now, they save a lot of money. They have extra money that they now invest into bicycles. And here's another effect of Corona. Firstly, I said there's an exploding market demand. Basically, Corona put the market demand in where we expected it maybe in 10 years. It made a huge leap. The market made a huge leap thanks to Corona. At the same time, the lockdowns interrupted the supply chains. So some manufacturers have difficulties in getting the parts and building and selling the bikes. So they can't meet the market demand, not only because the supply chains are interrupted, but because they just can't manufacture enough. And what I learned is that the major bottlenecks at the moment are frames, drive systems, and some other parts. Now let's look at the second chapter, at what will happen, or what I think will happen after the Corona pandemic is under control. It will definitely change the way we move in cities. The new normal, with social distancing, with homeschooling, with home office, and many other changes to our normal life, yes, it will change, and it has already changed the way we move in cities. There's a bigger demand for social space. There's less commuting because people work from home and learn from home. So this increases the leisure time that people have and that they can spend otherwise. And because there is less longer distance commuting to school, to work, and so on, people may go out for lunch and do shorter trips instead of longer commuting trips. And here's another very interesting aspect. We have learned what it feels when roads are empty, when they're free of cars, and people enjoyed it. Now cars are gaining back their space in the cities, but this memory will stay, how nice it was. And I think in the future, we will see more car-free city centers and more limitations to cars in order to enhance the quality of life inside our cities. And here's the thing, the hashtag means for later, and that's what people hope will remain, even if cars regain their space, keep the distance to cyclists, because many accidents in daily traffic happen because the distance between the cyclist and the car is just too small. And it seems that the whole e-bike development is just at its beginning. Corona has given it a huge push. And here's an interesting study of Shimano that came out just last month. And the reason why I think that there's still a huge undiscovered potential is that the study says every fifth person in Europe is thinking about buying or using an electric bike this year. And 22% of those people who said, yes, we want to buy or we want to use an electric bike are no active cyclists so far. So there's a whole new target group waiting to be considered and waiting to be delivered with bicycles and electric bikes in particular. And the study looks at several different reasons why people switch to e-bikes. And the major reason is that they like to do longer distances and to climb steeper hills. 32% of 13,000 people who participated in the study gave this answer. 30% said they want to ride an electric bike for physical health, and also 30% said they want to ride an electric bike because it is less effort. Now, if you look at this slide, it shows some countries of the European Union, and it shows some numbers here in percent. These percent mean that compared to 12 months ago, like for example in Germany, 10% more people think of buying or using an e-bike this year. In Switzerland, it's even more, 26, in Italy, 30, Poland, 26, Netherlands, 26. So these markets have a very dynamic development. The study also says that in Germany, the development is comparable, less dynamic, because Germany is the most developed electric bike market in Europe. And we have left the stage of the early adopters, and we're now in the stage of the early majority. And the main market drivers are still leisure and family cycling. And that's almost every third person who wants to use an electric bike to do just that. 28% said they want to use an electric bike for travel and commuting, 16% for sports and fitness, and 11% for carrying heavy loads. And what we see below are the countries whose main driver is leisure and family cycling. Germany, number 1. Now we see a lot of people want to use electric bikes to ride with family members and to go on shorter or longer trips. At the same time, this is the chance for the tourism industry, who was hit by Corona very, very hard, to recover a little bit. And it's the chance for a restart. One reason why cycling tourism still works is that other tourism fields, people can't plan, and 76% of German tourists don't plan to travel anywhere this year. But the people who have been planning a cycle trip, they stick to their plans because it is still possible, at least in their home country. And as in many other fields, especially in urban mobility, e-bikes have gained a big market share, and it is the same here. 30% of bicycle tourists use e-bikes already today. Now let me come to the third section and give you some of my ideas how the Taiwanese industry can benefit from what is happening in Europe right now. Right now, we have golden times for the e-bike industry. There's a huge demand, and the industry can't meet the demand. So there's a common effort necessary to catch up with this exploding market demand. Yes, increased production is one way, and there's a lack of frames and drive systems at the moment, so it will help to increase production capacities in that field. But what I think is the unique chance and also the a big talent of the Taiwanese industry is to get deeper involved, to really form a close cooperation with the European partners, to improve their communications, to get closely involved in product development and really be a part of this, because this can't be taken away so easily by a manufacturing country or other manufacturers who just do it maybe cheaper or quicker or whatever. And one important aspect to this is think custom product. Think about what every particular customer really needs. And rather think this way, custom product than one product fits all. Because the market in Europe now is so diversified, and some manufacturers can't do the whole spectrum of the market, or don't want to do the whole spectrum. So they really focus and they're optimize and perfectionize their products for certain applications. And another aspect is that companies realize that maybe production in Taiwan and on the long transport ways in Corona times is not such a good idea anymore. And they're looking into relocating their production plants to countries especially in Eastern Europe. So if a Taiwanese partner is very closely involved with the companies over here, they can participate in this relocation of production facilities, be part of it, and also benefit from it. So summarizing, we have golden times, but we also have big challenges. And by working together, by really getting involved with each other, we can do a big leap all together. And I would like to finish my presentation with a quote from Hannes Neupert, who is the president of Extra Energy based in Germany. He said, "Europe will see a cycle revival thanks to the electric bicycle technology, transforming market acceptance of the bicycle in general. Cycling will return to Europe, bigger than ever before." That's something to really work on together. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time. And I hope that we will be doing this together. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bruesch. 提醒大家，9月份每周四下午3点，贸协还会有一系列的疫后市场学线上研讨会。我们主题相当的精彩，包含了 5G 还有智慧城市，大家千万不要错过，请锁定贸协 YouTube 频道。接下来让我们欢迎第2位讲师 Mr. Mark Sutton。身为全球自行车品牌 Cycling Industry News 创办人，在自行车产业 B2B 和 B2C 写作拥有15年以上的经验，今日将为我们介绍后疫情时代英国自行车市场的第一手资讯，以及台湾厂商如何切入英国供应链的建议。Welcome, Mr. Mark Sutton.
Hello, and thank you for joining me for this presentation on the UK cycling, electric bike and e-mobility market. I'm Mark Sutton. I'm the editor of the UK B2B publication Cycling Industry News. For a bit of background on Cycling Industry News, we've been in the market for about 4 or 5 years now. We have quite a wide reach across the globe, but primarily it is a UK audience. We cover everything from market data to recruitment for the market and daily news updates, as well as printing a bi-monthly magazine. I'm also fortunate enough to have recently launched a consumer-facing cycling magazine for the electric bike market. That was done alongside Dennis Publishing in London and has a circulation of around 45,000. We are educating the market somewhat still on the electric bike, but it is nonetheless creating strong sales at the moment. In fact, many of our shops here at the moment are short on stock, so please send some over. Okay, let me get underway. Okay, so a quick background on how our market has evolved in the past 10 years. A reference point for many is the London 2012 Olympics. It was a time where cycling was very much celebrated in the press. We had Bradley Wiggins obviously scoop the Tour de France, and that seemed to spur a resurgence in business, particularly in the road cycling market. We had a swell in demand, particularly at quite a tight demographic. It was largely just the road cycling market that prompted quite a few good new shops to enter the market. And for probably 3 or 4 years, it was we were at the top of the roller coaster, quite enjoying the trade, creating lots of new riders. Perhaps they'd come in from other sports and been quite drawn by the favourable press coverage at the time. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and I think in the end, many decided that the roads here were not as inviting as they'd first thought. We ended up losing some of those cyclists and actually some of the shops that opened at the time. We think that those cyclists who didn't leave completely may have entered the gravel market, which has become one of the UK's shining stars, alongside the electric bike market, which is very much in its infancy here, but is accelerating quite quickly. We have a number of other markets which are particularly strong in the UK when compared to the rest of Europe. We have a very vibrant mountain biking and general off-road cycling market. I'd argue ever so slightly ahead of the curve on Europe on that one, the rest of Europe, sorry. Each year, Cycling Industry News does a survey of the marketplace. In particular, it is focused on the independent bike shops in the market, and we achieved quite good penetration with that. So about 10% of the market replies each year, and that has been growing. So it's a nice sample of the market. A lot of the slides you'll see through this presentation detail their feelings on the direction of the market, what's selling, which brands are performing well, what they'll be investing in or divesting from. And as I progress through this, I think you'll learn quite a bit from it. This year's, on this slide that you can see, outlines first the challenges that we face. Whether you ask a consumer or a professional in the business, our greatest barrier here does tend to be that we lack some of the appropriate infrastructure to really stimulate new cyclists coming to the market. We are making a lot of progress, but that progress is largely driven by the cycling lobby here in the UK, which is fairly minuscule compared to other opposing lobbies. We have a budget of about 2 billion dedicated to cycling and walking, which potentially sounds like a lot. But when you break it down over a 5-year government term, it's only 400 million a year to be divided across quite a few, over 300 local authorities. So when you break it down, the spend on cycling infrastructure remains a bit of a barrier in our market, unless you're very brave or you're perhaps not taking to the roads, and you are lucky enough to have some of the Sustrans network, for example, nearby. The Sustrans network is largely an off-road network of cycle paths across the UK that is generally well used. We have a few other challenges, not too many. As I say, the UK market is actually, I think, on the up at the moment. Cycling's portrayal in the press is perhaps, as illustrated by our study, the next greatest barrier to creating new cyclists. We have the famed British weather as well, which is mentioned here, but I think bike shops are a bit more optimistic because they sell the gear to get around that one. Just for reference, the logo on your screen is our national association, the Bicycle Association of Great Britain. And I touch here on some of that, should we say, false reporting in the press, which has proved a little bit of a barrier just to creating that demand and actually sustaining it. The image on your left is on your right is a temporary cycle lane put up recently as part of the government's proposal to get around some of the transport challenges posed by the coronavirus. It is a temporary cycle lane. And as I say, if the funding is improved, these things will become permanent. But we do face a little bit of an uphill struggle to get these things made permanent. Nonetheless, where these pieces of infrastructure have been put in place, they have been well used, and I think has given many people a sense of what could be in the future. Let's talk quickly about the coronavirus. I don't want to dwell on it too long, but it is an unavoidable topic at the moment. It has created a surge for bicycle demand and electric bike and many other micromobility forms like we've never really seen here in the UK. Certainly in my 15 years in the business, I've never seen anything quite like it. I've never seen people queuing for bike shops reverting as standard to an appointment model. I've not heard of distributors ordering an additional 30,000 bikes in a month on top of what they already had in stock and selling them almost before they'd put them on their systems. Really, it has been astonishing. It has been nothing short of astonishing. Our problem is perhaps to sustain that spike. Speaking to a lot in the business at the moment, the demand certainly still seems to be there, and I think will be there hopefully long after the coronavirus has stopped being a problem for the industry and beyond. It was estimated in one study that during that spike, 5% of the population bought bicycles or electric bikes. I would tend to agree that study may have been accurate, although it was more than likely based on a smaller pool of people in the entire population. We have other reference points, in particular, a recent study by Shimano of Europeans suggested that a quarter of Europeans would use an e-bike in 2020. They did drill it down by market, and we discovered that actually in the UK it was closer to 7% of residents who stated they intended to try an electric bike this year. Our market does remain in relative infancy, but we are very quickly having people try the bikes. Some of the share schemes that are based around electric bikes are helping quite a lot. They're prevalent in some of our key cities. They are introducing people to the concept who hadn't come across it before. They're very easy to use, as I'm sure you know. You just, if you've got a mobile, you can pretty much unlock them straight away. So that's, before coronavirus, was a key method to introducing people to the market. We are during coronavirus, like many others, have struggled to do physical product demos, but that has become a big focus for our market. And importantly, there are a number of consumer-facing shows now being put on. As you'll see from this slide, it's a pretty good indicator of where the market's at. The workshop waiting times at times ran into several weeks. I heard as high as a month from some shops, and on the back of that, we have actually seen again more shops opening. We have seen a real rise in the number of mobile mechanics servicing the demand. We would hope that this that isn't a case of history repeating, and that those shops will eventually close when the demand dies down again. But I would be inclined to think that certainly the service demand will remain for some time. The workshop has become an increasingly important part of the UK bike business in recent years. Certainly, it's where a lot of independent bike shops are focusing their efforts to gain maximum revenue. So the electric bike market, just to focus on it a little more, there is a gap in demand to be filled. As you'll see from this slide, electric bike production in Europe has risen 100% in a year from Taiwan, while bicycle imports have declined and declined by a reasonable amount. The gap has been more or less filled by exports to our country from electric bikes. It has risen north of 50% year on year. There are factors to be considered here. For example, when the anti-dumping measures tightened up on Chinese-made electric bikes, we saw a very large drop-off on exports from China into the UK on electric bikes. They now make up definitely less than a quarter and falling. So there was quite a gap to be filled, arguably particularly at the lower end, but our market, as I will detail later on in this presentation, has an appetite for bikes, electric bikes, in between anything from £1,000, perhaps all the way up to 7,000 or beyond. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of new events coming to stimulate this demand with the consumer. They are widely publicised and advertised, particularly in the cities at the moment. One that was scheduled for this year that unfortunately has been cancelled but now revamped was the London E-Bike Festival. That was set to be one of the first mass participation events where electric bike demos would have been really very prevalent from a number of brands. Smaller demos absolutely have taken place. A lot of bike shops tend to put on their own. My bike shop, for a local bike shop, for example, has significantly increased the number that it carries and the amount of demos that it enables customers to undertake. On the right here, you will see Cycling Electric, which is the consumer-facing magazine that I've just launched into the market. This is the first for a while that has tackled the electric bike market in print, and as I say, had a circulation of about 45,000 people. So we're reaching out to transport hubs through the supermarkets that we have here and the mass newsstand retailers. The idea is to continue to develop the education in the market on electric bikes. It seems to be going very well at the moment. Certainly copy sales are strong. You'll see on the cover a quite deliberate photograph a man and wife on a pair of electric bikes. What we are demonstrating with that is actually that a lot of sales in our market with electric bikes do tend to be pairs sold to a man and a wife. We have a good leisure market. Occasionally, one of the pair will buy a bicycle if they're ever so slightly fitter, and the other will buy an electric bike. But we do tend to find that pairs of bicycles or electric bikes are increasingly bought, which is quite exciting news for the retailers and those coming into our market. On the subject of marketing, the independent bike shops that we targeted with our survey do increasingly believe that the big gap that we have to fill is non-cyclists, people who either haven't really actively cycled before or perhaps have a bike that they haven't touched for a while. The industry is increasingly shifting away from marketing to the same people over and over again. It's a lesson we learn with the road boom that the good times can't last with one pool of cyclists forever. And we're learning that actually by looking at our neighbours in Europe as well, because they have perhaps more diverse markets than we currently have, but we have that ahead of us. So the scope to grow is arguably larger. The commuter market is another that we would like to target more, as is the youth schools and youth clubs. As you see, are second in the number of times cited by the bike shops. The bike industry has, to this effect, now pulled together in something that I perhaps couldn't have seen coming. A lot of the brands, distributors, bigger players in the market have thrown money behind a single industry campaign, which, as you'll see in the image here, is featuring where people perhaps are not enjoying their journey as much. We have quite a congestion problem in our cities, so a lot of the advertisements are featuring in places where people may find themselves not enjoying the journey and asking, is there another way? The image here does well to illustrate that. We have the road and the railway in the background, and that's indicative of where these marketing promotions funded by the industry as a whole are going. We think this is overdue, actually, that we have a collaborative effort to reach those new non-cyclists and commuters that are perhaps not enjoying their current mode of transport. Transport is probably key for our market going forwards, whereas the leisure side of things tends to self-sustain to a degree. We do, at the present time, as part of that £2 billion mentioned earlier, have a government initiative which is providing £50 service vouchers to the trade, to consumers, and the consumers can take those into their local bike shop and put it towards reviving their old bicycle. The demand so far has outstripped the supply. Batches of 50,000 of these vouchers are being snapped up very quickly as soon as they go live, which does show us that people have intent to change the way they move in the near future. We'd like to hope that trend will continue once the vouchers run out. Here's another segment from our independent retail survey. It's very exclusive information. And it will show you immediately there's one trend here in particular where retailers are investing much more than any other segment in electric blue it is the electric bike, which is outstripping demand for all other products from retailers at the moment. There are certainly other trends that exist here. As I mentioned earlier, the workshop is very much a focal point for businesses that are looking to really up their profitability. We perhaps were arguably a little too cheap over many years of our service work, but the market, with the emergence of the electric bike, is becoming more professional in both its service and the amount that it charges in order to get people back on the road. So the workshop is a focal point. Mountain biking, again, as I say, the UK has a very healthy off-road market, spanning everything from cross-country through to downhill, dirt jumping, lots of different offshoots. The gravel market there is in parallel, as you can see. And generally accessories are another area of investment where bike shops tend to see more profitability. On the flip side, we have what they are investing in less over the year ahead. Historically, clothing has always led the pack. We've run this study for 3 years now, and each and every year, bike shops are saying they're investing less in clothing. Road bikes is perhaps an anomaly here. As I say, we have in the past had very high road bike demand. So we're returning more to normal levels here, hence their reduction in floor space. Very possibly they're handing it over to electric bikes. Here's a bit of information on the average sale price of the electric bike in the UK. As I say, it runs anywhere from £1,000 north, as high, realistically as high as about £5,000 unless somebody is making an exceptional purchase. The vast majority do tend to fall between 1,000 and 2,500. Perhaps one of the reasons why these brackets are so important, in recent years, we have had an ever so slight readjustment of the cycle to work salary sacrifice tax benefit for people buying a bike in our market. Formerly, there was a limit of £1,000, and one of the providers here worked out there was a way to raise that limit, and subsequently the providers have all raised their ceilings. So we do tend to find electric bikes in particular have been a beneficiary of this. Formerly, they were very hard to get hold of, shy of £1,000, but now the limit has been lifted, we are finding the vast majority of electric bike sales tend to be between 1,500 and 2,500. We do tend to find that the larger brands do still have some market dominance. However, there is some movement here. Giant and Trek are certainly names you would expect to see up there. Our domestic distributor, Rally, part of the Excel Group, has definitely gained some ground in recent years, as has Cube, another European manufacturer who has significantly upped their output, adding to that year-on-year 100% increase in exports and manufacture in the EU of electric bikes. Specialized is arguably one of those brands that has been targeting the more high end, and so hasn't been as prevalent as it might be in the cycling market as a whole. But obviously their catalogue is broad. Highbike is one of the brands that is carried by Rally, so it's unsurprising to see them also round out the top 10 alongside a number of other homegrown and imported brands. As you'll see, the greatest opportunity to grow cycling in the near term, according to bike shops in this country, is those that are drawn in by the pull of electric assistance. For our market, it has opened doors to people that perhaps had fallen out of love with cycling or deemed that it might not be possible for them anymore. We initially targeted the over 50s, which you can see in this slide, are also another area that bike shops believe there's scope now to grow the market. But the electric bike is broader than that, and increasingly we are targeting the commuter. We are putting in more effort to lure more women into cycling. It has unfortunately historically been a more male-dominated makeup of cyclists in this country, but that is now changing, and there are a number of shops that increasingly tell me that their split is 50-50 or better. We are putting in some significant effort to balance that. Some tips on what the retailers might like in order to work with a partner, or what might attract them to working with a partner. Very predictably, they would like to make some money out of the arrangement. The margins on bike sales in recent years have been squeezed primarily by sort of market pressures and the advance of some brands going directly to the consumer has certainly squeezed margins across the board. We do tend to find that there are more brands now going directly to the dealer, which arguably has its benefits, but at the same time you do remove some local knowledge, which for the UK as a very separate entity to the rest of Europe, local knowledge is important here. I will touch on that later on in the presentation. Another surprising draw this year that the retailers have outlined, they believe is important going forwards, is the reduction on packaging. The sustainability conversation has really come up the agenda in recent years. I was surprised to see that as high up as it was this year, but it shows you that the sustainability conversation is growing on a national agenda, which can only be good for cycling going forwards. Bike shops do quite enjoy flexibility in their supply. They like exclusive products, a lower minimum order if at all possible. An equality with larger retailers in the market is certainly looked upon favourably. If they can obtain the same pricing structure as some of the larger retailers, they will certainly warm to that brand. Training in the market, for particularly as again the electric bike market has come to the forefront, and integration of technology into the bikes. Any supplier that can offer comprehensive training and support is looked upon favourably. And in general, if you have a easy to use B2B platform, that is also rated with bike shops in this country. So a few tips on what I deem to be important on if you are working with people in the UK. Opportunities certainly exist at the moment. There is plenty of innovation in the market at the moment. Some genuine, some more towards the marketing side. So if you can bring genuine innovation, you are likely to catch the attention of our distributors here. They increasingly tend to seek out a unique product that others perhaps don't carry. This is a draw for their retail customers. a reason for people to visit those shops, as opposed to perhaps ordering something less unique online. So yes, shortages do currently exist in the market. They are being redressed very quickly now. Hopefully we don't have a second wave that's too prohibitive on supply in the future. Fingers crossed for that one, but it is out of our control. Nonetheless, there are gaps to fill in the market, so keep the supply coming over the next few years. So engineering experience, attention to detail, the quality of material in particular. There are a lot of expert knowledge in engineering in our market, with some of the leading brands. We have some very innovative bike designers who will come to you with ideas that will be quite exciting, I'm sure, for your designers too. But quality of materials is perhaps a key one here. We generally only buy into high quality goods nowadays in the UK market. As far as contact goes, there are a number of ways to get noticed and perhaps not to get noticed. Trade shows are difficult at the moment, but they are important for that initial dialogue. We do tend to be a market that likes to sort of meet in person and to talk over a product face to face and get an understanding. That is unfortunately difficult at the moment. So the channels that our distributors and bike shops do tend to pay attention to are those B2B channels such as my own. We have a readership now that stretches well north of 100,000 users a month. That's not just within the UK. Probably about 45 to 50% of our audience is regularly the UK, but we do tend to reach out further than that now. So marketing through channels such as ours, but not necessarily ours. I'm not trying to make this a sales pitch. It is certainly, people do read our channels and others. So editorials that you can gather, probably by a direct approach where you can do it, is advised. However, we tend not to respond too well to sort of unsolicited messages via LinkedIn and email. We like to have a reference point before we are striking deals. As I said earlier on, local knowledge does remain quite crucial. We are very different in some respects to the European market and the US market. On some fronts, we're ahead of the curve, particularly mountain biking and other off-road, while as with urban transport trends, we tend to be behind mainland Europe. So there are opportunities, particularly on the urban side of things. Mountain biking, we are, as I say, slightly ahead of the curve. I haven't touched too much on Brexit as yet, and that is because we haven't quite concluded things, although it does appear it certainly is going to happen this year. It increasingly appears that we will have a no-deal outcome with Europe. And with that in mind, you would expect that we will seek favourable trade deals with partners outside of Europe. Certainly manufacturing hubs like Taiwan, I would expect that we will look to to have a strong relationship going forwards. And that brings me roughly to the end of my presentation. The last slide here is the cover of our annual study, which runs to 43 pages. It's a relatively comprehensive look at the UK market. You will have seen some of the slides in this presentation, but probably only about a quarter of the content that actually features. So if you are interested in learning more about our market, obviously feel free to contact me. The report I have made exclusively available at the price shown here for people viewing this presentation. It will give you a pretty comprehensive look at the mood in the market and where people are likely to place their money going forwards. And thank you for listening. I hope it has been of use to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. 也再次感谢各位观众朋友今天上线的参与，我们的研讨会到此告一段落，希望大家都能够有满满的收获。我们9月份外贸协会还会有一系列的疫后市场学线上研讨会，下周4的主题是一起掌握全球医材新商机，相当精彩，大家千万不要错过了。外贸协会疫后市场学线上研讨会，我们下周见，拜拜。